And I remember when I was leaving the house and I looked back and I said, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm done with this shit. I'm done living like this. I realized at that moment my entire life was circled around fear. I know that this stuff works. No matter if you are a first generation immigrant, if you're a woman, if you're married, or wherever you're starting from, having financial literacy really does make a difference. That's where the real stress comes from. The mental load of, my cell phone bill's up, the car payments overdue, the credit cards are stacking up. What do I do? And that overwhelmness and that anxiety, that affects not just your finances, but your entire life, how you raise your children, your relationship with your partner, your opportunities to take a break and have some hobbies, read a book, do other things outside of make money 24/7.
Right.
So I want more women to feel empowered and to see me as an influencer that is saying, hey, I'm not just here doing these things. You can do this too.
Sabrosura pa' ti que qué.
Hola, hola. Welcome back to Café con Pam, the bilingual podcast that celebrates the power of our stories, the medicine in our voices, and the magic of reclaiming who we are. This week, I'm sitting down with someone who turned one of the most terrifying moments of her life into a system that has helped thousands of families stop living in fear and start living with purpose. Sahirenys Pierce is a Dominican-American financial wellness educator, the founder of Poised Finance and Lifestyle, and the creator of the High Five Banking Method. And as of March 3rd, she is a published author. Her book, The High Five Banking Method, A Money System You Can Count On, is out now with Wiley. And yes, that Wiley, the 200-year-old publishing house. And it is already making her family cry in the best way. Bueno, what I loved about meeting Sahirenys in this episode is that she didn't come from personal finance through privilege. She came to it through loss. She watched her immigrant Dominican parents lose their home in 2008 in the recession. She broke into that house herself just to grab her work uniform, her school books, and a toothbrush. She looked back at the door and said, I'm done. I'm done living in fear. And that moment is where this story begins. And then life tested her again. Years later, already building her platform, already helping families, she found out during her pregnancy that her son had a heart condition. Open heart surgery at 6 months old, and instead of falling apart, she did what she does. She built a system. She separated the money. She put her son's surgery fund in its own account, untouchable. And when that day came and the hospital asked for payment, she handed over her card and said, take care of my baby. The money is not a problem. And this story, besides being finance, besides us talking about money, I see it more as a story of freedom and liberation. Y en este episodio, you're going to learn exactly how the High Five banking method works, the 2 checking accounts, the 3 savings accounts that give your money a purpose and give your nervous system a break. We're also going to explore what it means to move from a fear-based decision matrix to a power-based one. Porque many of us are making money decisions from our already used to survival mode, and we don't even know it. And we'll talk about why knowing your exact numbers, not percentages, not rules, your actual numbers, is one of the most radical acts of self-respect you can do for yourself. So if you've ever watched someone you love work hard and still lose everything, if you've ever felt guilty buying yourself lunch because you didn't know if the money would be there, or if you've ever thought, I'll deal with my finances when things calm down. Mi reina, things are not going to calm down. Y este episodio es para ti. Y bueno, sin más, aquí está mi conversación con la autora, educadora financiera y vecina de San Diego, Sahirenys Pierce. Sahirenys, welcome to Café con Pam.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about all the things. You have a book that came out this week, so you're in the
Yes.
midst of the book launch. How are you feeling?
Overwhelmed and tired, but I am so excited. And my sister started reading it, my cousins, all my family and friends, and they're like in tears. They're like, I did not know this was going to be an emotional book. I was like, I'm sorry.
That's awesome.
Yes, it's good reaction. So I'm really excited.
I love that. So the first question that we always ask is, what is your heritage?
Yes, I am Dominican. My parents are both immigrants from Dominican Republic, from the capital, Santo Domingo, but I was actually born and raised here in San Diego.
I know, which we met recently, and I was like, "Wait, how come I've not heard of you?" And we're in the same town.
I know, we're right here.
We're neighbors. So born and raised in San Diego as a Dominican, not common.
Mhm. Not at all.
How was that for you?
It was a little hard at first. So, my dad was in the military when he first got here in the Navy. And that's usually how people kind of get to San Diego. It's a big military town.
Yeah.
And, we found a few Dominicans here and there. There is a club in Bonita. And I actually went to school in Bonita for a lot of my times. I lived in National City, but my parents got me into that school district. You know how it is when you're
Mhm.
a household mostly speaks Spanish, you're a little behind in English and all those other languages. So I definitely needed to do that. But, I've been in Chula Vista for most of my life at this point. Went to Southwestern College, actually transferred to Cal State Northridge, and I've been a San Diego, California girl this whole time. So I'm excited. And there's not a lot of Dominicans, but that's okay. There's also a lot of Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Colombian people, Costa Rican people, and we have a lot of things in common. That's what I really love about the Latino culture. Everyone loves plátanos, rice, and beans, and we
Mhm.
all love our, eat our pastelitos and chicken. We all have a lot of in common. That's what I love most.
Totally. I think we can always connect in so many ways.
Hmm.
And, like, I have friends from all over Latin America, and, I mean, there's always the, "Wait, what does that mean for you?" type thing,
Oh my
you know?
gosh, yes, the zapote and popote.
Right.
The thing
All
is
the
a
words.
straw. You don't know what they're gonna call it.
Right. But that makes it so fun to still interact and still find that common ground of our culture that, while very different, because we are not a
Hmm.
monolith, it's still we still have a lot of, it's like we're primos, like we still have a lot of commonalities
Exactly.
and connections, and I think there's nothing like Latinidad truly, like
Hmm.
having the background of Latin America, whether it's the Caribbean or South America or Central America or whatever, it's still, we always find, like, it's familia either way.
We find ourselves either. You can be in Europe, you can be, in
Yes.
New York and Texas, it doesn't matter. We're always gonna find each other.
Mhm, and it's super fun. So, Sirenys, I wanna dive right into your story because there's a lot of this. So to give some context for people to get started, you're a financial educator, but it didn't I mean, it kinda started that way, but you were marked by a moment in your life when you were
Mhm.
like, "Money is a thing that gives access, and I wanna get into it." How Tell me what happened.
Yes, for me, they always tell us that you're supposed to learn about money at school or at home. But for me, I started learning about money while we were losing our home. And it was '08, and my dad was in real estate, and he told me and my sister, he sat us down in the front living room, the one that no one ever sits in. And he told us, we're not making any money. Don't ask us about trips. Don't ask us about clothes. Don't ask us for lunch money. If the sheriff comes knocking the door, you already know we're not making the payments on the house, so we might get kicked out. We're not paying the BMW, so if a tow truck comes around, they're not here to help you. If you have a flat tire, they're here to tow the car. And it changed my sister and I's perspective when it came to finances. My parents were very hard workers. They are immigrants, they're always talk about manifesting what you wanted out of life, but they never actually taught us how to manage our finances. So they were having a very difficult time with that. And eventually we did lose the house. It took a little while, but eventually we did lose the house. And the hardest part for me was hearing the story from my mom. I was in school and she told me, "Hey, they kicked me out in my pajamas. And the only reason they let me step back into the house is because my youngest sister, she's special needs and she needed to get her and her medication and stuff like that." And it was just mind blowing. And they told her, "If you went back into the house for any reason, we will arrest you, point blank." So, of course, I felt like a complete criminal that night, breaking into my own home just to get some of the bare essentials, my work uniform, my books for class, and my toothbrush. I wasn't in the position to just replace anything. We were scrapped for money at that point. And I remember when I was leaving the house and I looked back and I said, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm done with this shit. I'm done living like this. I realized at that moment my entire life was circled around fear,
Mm,
the fear of losing the house, the fear of losing the car, the fear of everything that I knew was my foundation crumbling right in front of me. My parents eventually ended up divorcing, and I ended up wanting to, find that stability that I was missing at home. Initially, I was in pharmacy. I wanted a recession-proof job because I saw how my
mhm,
dad's was. Although you make a lot of money in real estate, it is very flexible and it really does change based on the economy. And I wanted some stability. But I realized I was in that industry for all the wrong reasons. I didn't even like chemistry. So imagine being in that industry, in that career field for years and years and years. I was going to be miserable. So I decided to change my major that week. I was getting more serious about transferring to Cal State Northridge and making my life about me, and not be living in fear. So I turned that fear into power and I decided to, explore different industries within the business career field. And I landed on finance and financial planning. And I just completely fell in love because it was all of the secrets and strategies and tools that I felt that were foreign that we really would have benefited from if we actually knew about it. And the crazy part is that it wasn't just my family. There was so many families in my community, my friends that lost their homes, a lot of divorces, a lot of heartache. And I really wanted to help not just my family, but also my friends in my community so that we don't have to struggle every single time there's a recession, every single time there's a job loss, every single time there's a family emergency. I wanted us to feel confident with our finances. And when I learned about financial planning, that's all they're talking about pretty much is how to protect your finances and build your wealth so that you don't end up losing it over the generations. And I feel like that is so empowering and so motivating for me because, as a first gen Latina here in California, cost of living is sky high. So you really need to make sure that you're utilizing your finances in the best way possible so that you're not, positioning yourself in the future to be struggling.
mm.
And I wanted to share that with all my friends and family, of course. You just can't help yourself. You kind of like have to like splurting out, You're so
Yes.
excited. But I was really heartbroken when I found out once you get into the financial service industry that you're not allowed to talk about the services and tools and strategies on social media with other people. So that made me a little, little heartbroken. But I decided, you know what? I'm going to help my friends and family if they're open to it. But if they're not, that's okay. I know I implemented a lot of these things. I started budgeting, I started saving my emergency fund, investing my retirement, paying off my debt, and seeing my finances actually skyrocket. So I know that this stuff works no matter if you are a first generation immigrant, if you're a woman, if you're married, or wherever you're starting from. Having financial literacy really does make a difference.
Mhm. Okay, we're gonna backtrack a little. So,
Of course.
because I wanna get into I do a lot of somatic work, so I'm always curious about the overcoming and the expansion within yourself, especially when it comes to money. Because, well, primero, are you the eldest?
Of course.
Okay, just making
It's
sure.
vibing off of me. It's giving, what's it called? Personality A, personality, and
Yeah,
eldest sister.
type A. Yeah, type A, eldest daughter, let me take care of everyone. Yes, okay. Just making sure. I was like, "I'm pretty sure," but let's just okay. I wanna go back to that moment when your dad sat you down at the sala,
Mhm.
because this is where I think a lot of people will resonate with those conversations that often happen in our families that are like, "We are in crisis, this is when we talk about it." But did you get set before to be like, "We are making really good," like, when the house was purchased, for example, or when things were going well, did you have that conversation, or was it when things went bad that you had that conversation? Which I think a lot of us, that's when we have the conversations of like, "Oh, things are not going well. Let me just actually lay the ground now to just figure out what we're gonna do," and not necessarily the prevention part, which I'll give a little anecdote here. My best friend is a white girl from the Midwest, and this is relevant. And when I was in college, she we were talking about something, and she was like, "Yeah, I don't remember what it was, but she was like, "Of course, you like, if you don't have the money," because I was like, "I don't have the money for that." And she was like, "If you don't have it, you can always pull it from your savings." And I was like, "From where?" You
What
know?
savings?
Yeah, and she's like, "From your savings account, of course. I mean, because you have a savings account, right?" And I was like, "I barely know what a checking account is." Like, I don't know what, like, I've heard about it, right? Like, when you open your checking account, they tell you, like, "Do you wanna open a savings?" I was in college, and so she sat me down. She asked me, "Did your parents never sit you down to help you how to balance your check? Like, did you not have a bank account when you were, like, 14, and then your mom," like, she literally walked me through that, like, my mom sat me down and we balanced, like, she taught me how to balance a checkbook, and I was like, "You're speaking another language." I'm so confused, like, that did not happen. So, going back to my question, I asked that because I didn't get that, but I got the "things are not going well" conversation.
Mhm.
So tell me what's coming up for you.
So for me, my parents never told us we were doing well. We kind of just started figuring it out. We're like, okay, we're going out to eat a little bit more. We're going back to the DR a few more times a year. All right, I'm starting to see what you guys are putting down.
Yes.
And my parents were, they used to flip homes. That was their biggest business. My dad did real estate. He used to also flip homes and do rental properties here and also in the DR. So we were always like on site. We
Mhm.
knew all of the hard work that they were actually doing. And that's why it was so hard to see them lose everything because we saw all the dirty work, cleaning up these homes that were vandalized and completely destroyed and turning them into something beautiful, almost the most beautiful homes in the block. And seeing that, making that difference in our community, it impacted. Now, the other neighbors want to clean their homes and, decorate and make everything look nice. So it benefits our communities.
Yes.
But I didn't learn about how to actually just start managing what you had. And I saw my parents, spend a little here, spend a little there, and then start spending more and more and more. And it started getting, even to me, a little out of hand. Like my quinceañera was
A
ridiculous. It was
wedding?
at Lowe's. Yes, it was a wedding at Lowe's Coronado.
Oh my
It was
god.
lo máximo, but it was a little over the top. Even for me, I was like, okay, you guys are saying yes. You can say no. You don't have to say yes to everything I say. But they were like, no, let's do it. And I'm like, all right. So then it's hard to see, them trying to spoil and take care of their kids. And then for it to have to be retracted, like, okay, now we can't give you nothing. Don't ask for nothing. No clothes, no
Right?
nothing. Not even food for, what's it called, for lunchtime. No lunch money. And I know at that point, I was like, okay, well, then I'm just going to go get a job. Like, after school, I can go get a job and I can help, pay for the cell phone bill and help out a little bit and start saving my money because I'm seeing what's happening. I'm not ignoring it.
Mhm.
My sister and I, we both really wish that our parents talked a little bit more about that. But from my understanding, my parents didn't know. They still don't know. My dad and my mom, they're still really into learning how to make money, manifesting, and learning about other people that are successful in business. But they're missing the biggest part, which is how to maintain the wealth. And that's what I feel like a
Mhm.
lot of our family members, even our grandparents and parents, they still would benefit from that. And as the eldest daughter, and with me being someone who's educated in this, I'm definitely, recommending this to, my parents, my friends' parents, all of the young generation, because saving money shouldn't be weird. It should be very common.
Necessary.
Yeah, because we're talking about basic things that shouldn't be like awkward.
Totally. So, you sit down, you have this conversation. I'm pretty sure your nervous system, the thing is that when you're young, like,
Mhm.
you're like, you roll with it, our nervous systems are
Mhm.
much more, like, flexible in a way.
Yes.
Usually, that trauma, because it is trauma. I mean, you went from having to not having, you were stripped from things. So
Very
that is
fast.
trauma. And so when did you real or have you worked on that moment of I went from, because I had a drastic situation like that where we had some and then we didn't have anything. I was going to private school and then we came to the US and then we didn't. you
Mhm.
know? And
Mhm.
so that, for me personally, I've worked on that, my capacity to receive again,
That's beautiful. Mhm.
because you could receive before and then you were like, just kidding, cut
Rejected.
out.
Mhm.
Uh-huh. And so How was it for you, that journey to receive again? Was it when you went to school, when you started making money? How was it for you?
For me, it was really hard because I was someone who was very open and, always manifesting, getting everything that I wanted. And like you said, it stopped and I actually became a very fearful and I started hoarding money like crazy. And to a
Oh,
point that my mom was like, "Oh, I feel like I don't need to take charge you rent because I know that you're saving money for a reason." I was saving money for a car, and then eventually I was saving money so I could move out to go to Northridge. And I was a crazy saver, extreme
wow.
to a certain point. I would only spend like less than 10% of my income. And I wasn't making a whole bunch, again,
Right.
you're young, you're not making a lot of
And
money.
you don't have a lot of expenses either.
No, not too many. No expenses at a certain point. But, my transition started happening once we lost the house. And then I realized that I was living in fear. I was holding on to a whole bunch of relationships, friendships, and making career moves based out of fear. And that kind of opened my eyes. I was like, wow, I am not handling this with poise, let's say. I'm
Mhm.
handling this out of a place of survival mode. This is not who I am. My decision matrix was off. I was just tunnel vision. This is the only answer. Save, 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 save. In the reality, there was multiple options and multiple avenues to actually take care of myself, financially, but also start thriving. And when I started learning about all these different strategies in my financial planning classes, that's when I started being more open to investing, to spending without feeling guilty. Because when I was at college, I was now responsible for paying all the bills. And I felt
Mhm.
so intimidated to go to the store and buy a cute dress. I felt intimidated to buy like a little lunch if I forgot my lunch. So I really wanted to change that dynamic. And I didn't really start, learning and leaning into all of the different things I was learning until I got into the real world. And I was like, oh, okay, I don't have to, live in fear. I can have a little bit of money to spend. I can be responsible with my bills and I can start maneuvering a lot easier. And it did take me a while. I'm not going to say it happens overnight because it didn't for me. But I think just realizing that I was living in fear was the first step
For sure.
of me seeing, hey, that I'm not making the best choices for myself. And when you start realizing that, you want to make a change. You feel empowered and you feel that energy shifted from being in fear to now to being in control. And you want to do that. So I really want people to, if they're in that situation when they're living in survival mode and they're not even realizing it, figure out what your I'm done moment is, like I did, and then start making moves forward because that really did make a big difference for me.
Totally. I think the psychology of money is really fascinating because
Mhm.
for me, like for you, you saved. For me, the loss was I spend it as I get it because I don't
Mm.
know when I'm gonna make it again. And like I just didn't know what saving was. And so it's like really interesting how we respond in a different way. So I wasn't necessarily living paycheck to paycheck, but I could have. I was like very close. And so it's just like I'm thinking how fascinating that we like the fear. We both were dealing with fear. We were just
Mhm.
responding to the fear in a different way. You know?
Yes. It's crazy. It's crazy when you think about it.
Yeah. So you decide to go into finance.
Yes.
How is it for a first gen Latina, Dominican American to walk into those spaces that I would venture to say you probably didn't find a lot of people like you?
When I was in the LA area, there wasn't. It was very white, very male. There was a few ladies and there was one black lady, and that was pretty much about it. And, I was like, I felt like the poor little Latina girl, like, oh, poor you. You just give you opportunities. Let's help you. And I was grateful to be the underdog where people would, recommend me books to read, give me letters of recommendation, very open because they knew what my situation was at that point.
Mm,
But once I came to San Diego and I started working in the financial industry, like at MetLife and Ameriprise, I was very lucky. There was a lot of Latinos there and very diverse group. And a lot of the girls that worked in my office at Ameriprise were Latina or either half Latina or full Latina. I was the only one who spoke Spanish, but that's okay. And, it was a great way for me to feel inclusive and not feel by myself.
Did you ever, as you are in the financial world and you start
Mhm.
seeing big numbers and you start looking at like all of those zero, 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 zeros, how did your nervous system react to that?
I actually started comparing myself to a lot of the older clients because I was like normalizing seeing, oh, $1 million accounts. Okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
no
This
big
is
deal.
normal. Of course, you're invested in Apple and Meta, and all these are great investments. And, seeing their asset allocations, just seeing myself wanting to be in that world and wanting to have those portfolios for myself as well. And I had to get a real hard reality check. Hey, you're in your 20s. These people are in their
Mm,
50s and 60s. Calm down.
yes.
You're going to get there, but it's not going to happen overnight. Again, it might take 20, 30, 40 years. Look at these people. They've built up their investments, they've built up their inheritances and all of their systems over time.
Mm,
And I think it's really hard when you're a young minority getting into these big, big spaces and you're seeing yourself starting not from the starting line, but a few steps back where you have
yeah.
credit card debt, you have student loans, you have family members who actually need help and that would require a little bit of income from you to help them out. So, it really does change your mindset of where you can be if you just stay focused on where you're trying to get to.
Something that I heard you say on Journey to Lunch, when you said as you enter the financial industry, you could have gone into bankruptcy, but that would have costed you your career.
Yes.
And so tell me more about that, and what was that pressure like to have get to that, like, realize that you were there and then be like, "But this could cost me my career."
Yes, knowing that so many people that in my community, like my parents and friends that were Dominican, had filed bankruptcy, and then getting into this industry and being told the law of the land, where you can't post on social media, you can't do this, you can't do
Why
that, and then
not?
that was the rules back then. It's changing a little bit, but it's pretty much, from my understanding, is it's behind a paywall. You want
Mm,
these resources is behind a paywall, and the companies also don't want to get sued or being liable for people giving bad financial
financial
advice.
advice. Mm,
Like they've been doing, I think, with life insurance, saying, "Oh, it's a bank." It's not a bank, and they've
right.
now regulated it. If you keep saying that, you will lose your license. You will not
Mhm,
be working with us. So there does need to be a little bit of a guardrail where people aren't, flamboyantly saying whatever they feel like saying that is not
mhm.
true. But it is hard because there's so much financial literacy that is not being exposed to the community. And when I found out that, I couldn't file bankruptcy, I had to break this information to my fiance at the time, who is now my husband. And because he was, with me on the ride when I was learning about estate planning and tax planning and retirement, all these fun things, they weren't fun, but for me they
Right.
were.
For you.
He for me, they were. He luckily was on board. He's like, "Okay, well, what do we need to do to make sure that, we don't end up in these situations?" So before we even said "I do," we ended up paying off all of our student loans. And we had our emergency fund, we were budgeting, and like I said, if we've never done that, I don't know where we would have been. And when we started our business, I'm so grateful that we ended up paying off all those student loans because that amount that we were paying is pretty much what we're paying for healthcare. So it kind of been like, oh, we paid off our student loans, but now we have to pay for healthcare. Okay, this is a new journey that we're on.
For sure. Okay, let's take a quick coffee break, and then we'll come back and keep talking about your story.
Sabrosura pa' ti que.
Sahirenys, do you drink coffee?
Yes, but I now drink decaf coffee
What?
because I have Graves' disease and I have hyperthyroidism. So it makes
The
me a
caffeine.
little too excited, heart palpitations, and my doctor's like, "Let's stick to decaf if you want to have less of these episodes." And I'm like, "All right, at least I get to have, get to go to Starbucks or my local coffee shop and enjoy something."
Right. You get to at least you get to drink it. Do you drink it at home?
I do drink it at home, and I also drink it at coffee shops. It's hard when I go to my mom's house because she's not used to carrying decaf. They're like,
Yes.
"What? Decaf? Drink some tea." I'm like, "All right."
Yeah.
But luckily, I don't have headaches the next day when I drink decaf, so I'm, like, pretty happy about it.
That's awesome. How do you drink it when you go to a local coffee shop, let's say?
Um, Different ways. I get like a latte, decaf latte. I love more milk than coffee.
Okay.
My coffee has to be like this color. And very sweet. I like my coffee sweet, but I usually also do sugar free because I'm not trying to consume too much sugar.
For sure.
That's a hard thing in our community, diabetes and all the different health risks. Trying to protect myself a little bit, but also have a little sweet tooth. I know that.
I know, it's a whole thing. The whole health,
It is. It is.
especially heart disease in Latinos is big.
It is, it is. It's really hard because there's so many different things. Like, I didn't even know I had Graves' disease until I was out of my pregnancy with my second son, and I was getting como un palito, and everyone in my family is like,
Mm.
"What is going on?" And I went to the doctor. They're like, "Ma'am, you have Graves' disease. You have
You
hyperthyroidism.
over Wow.
Yes, we need to put you on medication. And if you wouldn't have came in, this actually would have been life threatening by 40." And I was like, oh my gosh. Okay, it's a lot
Wow.
more serious than I thought it was. I thought I was just, getting skinny. And I was like, no.
Dang. Well, I'm glad you got it checked.
Yes, and that is crazy because the more you talk about it, the symptoms and the different things that you go through, the more people are figuring out that they also have autoimmune disorders. It's a huge thing that's happening right now. So I
Mhm.
want all of our Latinas to go get our blood work done and take care of ourselves because
Mhm.
health is wealth.
Health is wealth. And it's not normal to suffer. I think we also normalize suffering so much.
Mhm. Being in pain.
See, like, I hear people like, I get headaches all the time." And I'm like, "But you're not supposed to have headaches all the time? Like, your
Mhm.
body is not supposed to have headaches all the time? Like, get that checked, you know?"
Mhm. Take the time. It might, take 30 minutes, and a lot of doctors are now open on the weekends, so there's no excuses nowadays.
Totally with you 100%. Health is wealth. Do you
Mhm.
have Since you're in San Diego, do you have a local coffee shop that you visit?
I do. It's called Kalua, and it's in Chula Vista, downtown Chula Vista. It's a little coffee shop across the street from KFC. It's right there. It's super packed, though, every time I go. I love it, though.
Nice, and you get your decaf lattes
My
there?
decaf, yeah, and then sometimes I'll spoil myself and I'll get a guava matcha. Oh my god, I'm obsessed with guava
Ooh,
right now. It's so good.
guava matcha.
Yes, it's so good.
I might go just to try it. Downtown Chula
Yes,
Vista?
yes,
Okay, okay, listeners, if you're in San Diego,
feels like summer.
yeah, already. I mean, which, you know,
It's
we're almost
crazy.
there. Spring is here. Spring is here, almost.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's get back to the show. Here's the thing. Latina families have been saving money forever. From reusing plastic containers for comida, folding up plastic bags under the sink, and diluting dish soap with water. The last thing we need is to pay fees to access our money, right? Pues, in case you didn't know, BMO customers have access to 40,000 fee-free ATMs across the United States. Plus, their BMO Smart Advantage checking account has no monthly maintenance fee. Learn more about how BMO can help by visiting bmo.com/checking. bmo.com/checking. Conditions apply. Accounts provided in the United States by BMO Bank and a member FDIC. Do you ever feel like money's supposed to make you feel free, but instead it just makes you feel like a fraud? Like, you should already know this stuff: investing, retirement, debt, but you're still Googling what's a Roth IRA like it's a secret society? Let me unmute that real quick. Savvy Ladies is a nonprofit that gets it, and they're not here to shame you. They're here to support you. They've got a completely free financial helpline where real humans, real experts give you answers without judgment. Whether you're navigating money wounds, dreaming of building wealth, or just trying to make sense of your paycheck, this is your safe space. No sales pitch, no confusing jargon, just real talk, real help for free. Because financial confidence isn't just about numbers. It's about knowing you're not alone anymore. Head over to savvyladies.org to learn more. That is SAVVYLADIES.org. Okay, Sahirenys. So you just to kind of like bring it back to your story. You go through the loss of the house, then you go through your finance career. you're about to get married and you're like, "Let's get our debt together and figure it out." You pay almost $100,000 in 5 years.
Yes. It was wild because we also had cars, and that's also part of debt, what a lot of people don't realize. They're like, "Oh, I don't have any credit card debt." Yeah, but student loans, car loans, all the store cards, those do count. So you have to add that back into the equation.
I My partner calls it, car poor. He's like, "You're
Yes.
car poor if you have a car payment." And
Mhm.
so yeah, and I was like, "I've never heard that." And I was like, "What do you mean car poor?" And he was like, "Yeah, because you're like it's not yours. You're paying for it, you know?"
Mhm. That's also something that I learned during the '08 recession. Just because you have a car, if you don't own it in full right, it doesn't actually belong to you
Yeah,
because you could be paying it and you could be like, I'm halfway done paying off the loan. But then if you stop making payments, they can tow your car. And that was a big wake up call for me to like actually own what you have, not just rent it or lease it all the time. Because then at the end of
mhm,
the day, if tough times comes, you won't have anything. And that's a
totally,
really hard pill to swallow, especially if you live in a city where you need a car. If you don't live in New York City, a car is mandatory.
totally. And I think about wealthy people, how they manage assets very different, like,
Mhm.
I know rich people that could care less about a fancy car.
That's very true. That's very true.
They just, like, invest in land or invest in the stock market or whatever because that's the wealth that they can grow and, like, a car I learned this I used to be a car collector, a
Ooh,
car payment collector. That's how I which
a car payment collector.
a car payment collector, I know, that was, like, an adventure in and of itself. But I think about your story and how you went into the financial services and how that shaped you so much, that
Mhm.
gave you access and knowledge. I often think about how I deal with cars, for example, and how when like that part of my life when I was collecting for car payments, I realized how interest and compounding works, how paying off your principal works, how all of that. And so the way that I manage cars is different because of that history that I have. And so it's really cool to see how our choices as young people
Yeah.
influence so much our decisions later in life, you know?
Yeah, they absolutely do.
And so, okay, so you decide to pay off your debt. And something that I think it's really cool on you wrote this on your blog. You said that motherhood wasn't the end of your professional journey, it was your reinvention.
Mhm.
I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think your social media influencing journey started more so to help the community and the underbanked and the people than, I want to like just get all these followers.
No, yes, absolutely. When I started, sharing with all the experiences that I went through during '08 and with my son, a lot of mothers and family members and friends, they resonated with that. They helped us move out when we only had a few hours to move out of our home. They were there when they found out that, my son had a heart defect and all the different things that we've gone through. And a lot of times for women, especially when back in the day when I was in my industry, they always told us you can't take a break from your career. You can't have a gap of unemployment.
Mhm.
And I was like, that's complete BS, especially when it comes to finances. Everybody's old. What are you talking about? The older,
Right.
the better. So even though I wasn't, advised to take a break from my career, I kind of reinvented it and created my own avenue where I was like, you know what, I could still be involved in finances, but I can now help actual people and mothers and families who are struggling with the day-to-day finances because that's where the real stress comes from. The mental load of, my cell phone bill's up, the car payments overdue, the credit cards are stacking up. What do I do? And that overwhelmness and that anxiety that affects not just your finances, but your entire life, how you raise your children, your relationship with your partner, your opportunities to take a break and have some hobbies, read a book, do other things outside of make money 24/7.
Right.
So I want more women to feel empowered and to see me as an influencer that is saying, hey, I'm not just here doing these things. You can do this too. It's not just for me, it's for all of us to be able to feel a bit more confident in our own skin and in our choices as well.
Mhm. So tell me what happened with your son. So you're told that he has this heart challenge and
Mhm.
that he needs to go at 6 months old. He needs to go into
Mhm.
surgery. And what happens to you? And how does the money come into play and your 5 bank accounts? How was that
Yes.
born?
It was born out of that for sure. So I'm gonna go back a little bit. It's wild because when I found out during I was pregnant again, and I found out, gender reveal parties were a big thing at that point. So I wanted to do a gender reveal birthday party for myself. And when I found out that they saw something on the ultrasound, it was devastating. And we
Oh,
officially
they
found out we
noticed since the ultrasound.
Yes, I was already 5 months in because my first pregnancy was so healthy. They're like, "You're a young woman, your first pregnancy was great, you have all the time in the world, just come whenever you want." I was like, "Alright, cool." I'm taking the advice from, professional
Yeah.
doctors and nurses. And they're like, "We saw something. Can you come back to our bigger office?" And then they sat me down with a cardiologist and multiple doctors, and they're like, "Your son, he has tetralogy of flow. It's a common heart defect." And luckily, we saw it on the news a few days ago that Fallon, what's his name? The talk host,
Mm,
Jimmy Fallon,
Jimmy Fallon.
apologize. His child also had the exact same thing, and they didn't even know that his daughter had that. She had to be transported to surgery right after birth, and they had no idea because she started turning blue, and the nurse found it out.
Oh my gosh. Frightening.
Yes. So then I'm like, wow, this is what we're kind of expecting then. And they didn't have a defined date of when the surgery would be. It would be either right after birth, 6 months, or 12 months later. They just had to kind of see how the child developed, if once he's actually here.
Mm,
And it was so heartbreaking for me. I went to the first place that I can think of that I can find some peace and I can ground myself, which was the beach.
mhm.
I went, my daughter was playing like nothing was happening, and I was, like like a truck just hit me in the face. And it was a difficult moment for me, and I prayed to God, "Please give me a sign that everything's gonna work out." And at that moment, I felt like nothing was in my control. So I really focused on what can I control at this moment because there's very little I could do. I'm already eating extremely healthy. I'm eating blueberries, brain juice, all the healthy stuff that I could be doing. What can I actually do to help my child come into this world in the best way possible?
Mm,
So I put my little finance hat on and I started, calculating how much is this surgery going to cost? What insurance can we get him? Are we able to get the Ronald McDonald House if we go to Children's Hospital in LA? Do we need to meet the surgeons? All of this different, aspects of the surgery that I wanted to be in control of. And when I told my husband the budget, a couple of weeks later, he told me, "You guess what happened?" I was like, "What? What happened?" I just got a project and it was literally $100 away from the budget that I projected. And right then and there, I knew that miracle, it was a miracle that everything was going to be okay. And I told my husband, we need to take this money and we need to put this in a separate savings account. So no matter what happens, our son's money for his surgery is okay. An emergency happens, oh, hey, we pull from our emergency fund, not from this. A bill's late, we pull, from our bills account, not this. This money is a blessing that we got, and I prayed for it, and we're gonna make sure that it's there when we need it. And when I started really taking that aspect of having that separate savings account for just his surgery money, and I started reorganizing how our finances were being flowed in our bank accounts so that I wouldn't have to be so hands on during a moment where I knew I wasn't going to be able to. I was 100% focused on my son. Everything else had to be on autopilot. So I had my bills account money, I had my life account money, I had my emergency fund, my short term and my long term goals. And that made the whole process so much easier. And when we actually got to the surgery, you're talking to all these families. They're, going through the exact same thing you are. Their child's going through open heart surgery. And hearing these heartbreaking stories of this mom who had to quit her job because they wouldn't let her take 2 weeks off to be there for her daughter while she's fighting for her life and the recovery. This other father, he had to do Uber so he can afford the surgery because they're asking you for half the payment up front.
Up front?
Oh yeah, the half of it. So it just depends on your insurance and how that works out, but it's a pretty penny for a lot of people, especially if you're struggling already financially. And when I was in that waiting room, the biggest blessing that I had wasn't being rich. It was not having to worry about the money during this most precious time and being able to give my all and my heart to my son and making sure that, I was aware after the surgery to make sure everything was good. And once we got home, I told my husband, this worked. Whatever we did, what worked. I didn't want for once check my budget. I didn't worry if our bills were being paid on time. I didn't worry if I wanted to get a coffee to ground myself to feel like some normalcy in my life. I knew that my husband's father passed away 2 weeks before. We had to use our emergency fund money so he can go to Alabama to be there with his dad and help everything out. But I felt like, you know what? We have the money. It's in our emergency fund. Go be with your family. They need you as well. And, the money for our son's surgery, they asked me for the money. Here's my card. Take care of my son. The money's not a
Mhm.
problem. Take care of my baby. And that confidence and that grit that we had and, being able to be there for our son and not worry about the finances, not worry about what's happening anywhere else, that's something that I feel like a lot more people need. Because I know when I was growing up, every time there was a family emergency, there was a family member that, passed away or in the hospital, there'll be a raffle. Everyone has to like tip in and everyone's fighting
Right.
about who helped more and, the whole
The
arguments.
susus or the tandas, ¿no?
Mhm. And for this moment, didn't deal with any of that. We handled all of it and we handled it with such grace that I feel like when you're going through these difficult moments with health related, situations, recessions, wars, all these difficulties that we're all going to be facing one way or another at different stages of our life, of course,
Mhm.
handling it with poise and grace and knowing that you have the finances and they're exactly where they need to be, it makes a huge difference. And we are able to relax and let go of that mental load that's stressing us out and see all of the multiple options, get out of survival mode and create that decision matrix where we can have a lot multiple options of what we can do.
Mm.
We have the finances to pay for the surgery. We have the money in our emergency fund to pay for whatever happens. And for us, it was just kind of like the worst case scenario, 3 emergencies. Father-in-law passes away. I was diagnosed with grave disease and my son had his open heart surgery. It was it was a lot, but to be able to rely on my money system meant the world to me. And that's why once we got home, I told my husband, let's share this with the world. And he's like, okay, well, how many accounts do we actually have? I was like, all right, let me think. Well, we have one for our bills, checking account for our bills. We have a checking account for our lifestyle. We have an emergency fund, a long-term goals, and short-term goals. We have 5 accounts, the high five banking method. And we're like, yes, that's it. And it was a
Nice.
special moment because we knew how beneficial it was for us. And we knew the moment if we shared it, it would be so helpful for so many other families and people who are, eventually, going to go through difficult times, how to
Mm.
organize themselves and feel confident during that.
So for the people listening who are, like, sold, definitely get the book. We're gonna have the links and everything. But something that we could share with them because as you have shared in the past, underbanked, like,
Yes.
let's maybe start there and then what do people need to know about having those multiple bank accounts? And I do want to bring it back to the capacity to hold the money because
Hmm.
we like just like we talked earlier, either you save a ton or you don't know how to save, and there's
Hmm.
I think it's a spectrum. And so what do you recommend for listeners who are like, sure, let's do this. It worked for you. I believe you. Where do I start?
The first thing is to realize that this is a framework and it's based on purpose. If you don't have a purpose for an account, don't open it. If you're just starting off, you definitely want to start with the first 3 accounts. You don't have to open up all 5 accounts right away. This is a framework. So start with your bills checking account because we all have priorities we got to take care of. Our
Mhm.
lifestyle checking account so that you are having some fun, but also putting a cap on it so you're not getting out of credit card debt or out of control. And then also an emergency fund. I know it's really hard for people to save money, but once you know what the intention is, you feel a lot more push to actually save the money and not pull it. A great
Mhm.
tip for someone who is, used to pulling the savings or not used to saving is to house your emergency fund at a different bank. I'm very, very happy about online banks that give you the opportunity to have high yield savings accounts where you can start seeing the money start making a little bit of interest. You start getting motivated and excited to see your savings growing and
Mhm.
comfortable enough that you're not actually transferring it over very easily. Because if you have your bills at certain account, a certain bank, and then your emergency fund at a different bank, it's kind of going to take some time to transfer that money over, and that kind of makes you double think about it. Okay, should I be transferring this over? Am I really willing to wait 2 to 3 days?
Right.
And for a lot of people, they're like, never mind, which
Yes.
is a good thing.
Yes. Okay, so start with the 3.
Mhm.
And something that you also talk about is that exact numbers are better than percentages
Yes.
because we often hear the bucket method, right? Like, I think it's 50, 30, 20.
I'm so anti that
I
strategy.
know.
It's a
Tell me more.
tool because it's very concrete. So when we hear rules, we know you're not supposed to break the rules. So for a lot of people who are living in big cities like us in San Diego, if you say, "Oh, 50% of your income has to be for your bills," and for a lot of people even here, their mortgage might be 50% of their bills. Now what do? They also have other bills, other responsibilities. So instead of focusing and trying to force yourself to fit into these rules, why don't we just sit down and figure out what your numbers are? Well, how much does your minimum cost of living actually look like? How
Mhm.
much are you willing to spend on your lifestyle? You have a choice. But that lifestyle account is also kind of like the the middleman where it's like you can't start saving if you keep on spending all your money on your lifestyle. So you have to decide, hey, I'm only going to spend $500 a month, let's say for example, on my lifestyle because I have other things that I want to accomplish, like building up my emergency fund, saving for a home down payment or for a fun trip. Whatever your financial goals are, that's great that you have them and you know what they are, but give yourself the wiggle room to actually start saving for it and knowing what the dollar amount is. Like when I came to my wedding, when I figured out and I did my budget of how much my wedding cost, I'm like, okay, we need to have this amount in the budget in our savings account, not, 10% or 20%. That's not going to get me to my goal. I know how much money I need to put down for the caterer. It's not a random percentage, there's a specific number.
Right.
And there's so much power in actually knowing your numbers. This is something that a lot of people don't know. And when they're, negotiating for a new job or for a new opportunity, knowing your number of saying, "Hey, I can't go below 4,000. My bills are 4,000." So it's going to be a no. I'm sorry. But that's when you start knowing your worth and knowing what you can and can't negotiate.
So we have the 3 bank accounts. So bills, lifestyle, and savings.
The emergency fund. Yes.
Yeah. So how much emergency fund? 6 months, 3 months, a year? What does that look like?
Yes. So in the finance industry, they usually recommend 3 to 6 months. But what does that even mean? For a lot
Right.
of people, we don't even know what 1 month is. So the great part about the high five banking method is once you calculate how much your bills are, that's realistically your minimum cost of living, which would equal 1 month of your emergency fund. So if you are single, for example, and you don't have any dependents, you can lean towards 3 months. But if you're a single parent, for example, or you have your parents who are living with you
Mm,
might need a little bit more. You might want to lean towards that 6 months. Same thing if you're a married couple and you have no dependents. Okay, you can deal with 3 months because if one person loses their job, the other one has their job still, let's say, for example. But if you have dependents, you're going to want to lean towards the 6 months. Now, where things start to change is if you are a two household family, but only one person's working. Now
mm,
the things have changed a little bit. If you don't have any dependents, you want to lean towards 6 months, but if you have dependents, more towards 9 months. And if you're a business owner like you and me, if you
mhm.
don't have any dependents, you want to lean towards 9 months. But if you have children or aging parents you're helping take care of, you're going to want to lean towards 12 months. The reality is, the more you have on the table, the more money you're going to need.
Totally.
So it's really important that you kind of figure out what your risk tolerance is, what's going on in your life, how many people are depending on you to be responsible for them, and start making the adjustments of how much money you may need for your security at the end of the day.
Mm. What do you think about fire?
Fire, I'm not that interested in fire. I'm more interested in the beginning, financial independence, and
Uh-huh.
that to me is a lot more empowering because, a lot of people want to build up their nest egg so they can give money to their families, inherit money for their kids, and, put themselves set themselves up so they can have more opportunities. But for a lot of people, for like you and me, we might not need $5 million to start our business. We might just need a good nest egg, and then we can start taking the leap little by little. Like a lot of content creators, for example, they'll start their business, and then once they get to a certain point, then they'll go ahead and go full time. So I don't recommend to wait until you have $5 million to start your business. That's going to take a long time for some people, depending on your income and your career field.
Mhm.
But give yourself some grace. Have your long term goal of having a sabbatical, let's say, or having enough funds so that you could start your business. And that way you can expand your horizon and start enjoying the things you love in life instead of waiting until retirement. Because to me, that's a little wild to live your whole life struggling. And then at 60, now I can go to the beach and have
And
fun.
then you're tired and your knees hurt, you know? Like,
Exactly. Now you have health problems. No, 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 no. Live your life now. Make sure you have your emergency fund and set a goal for, to start your business and start little. It's okay.
I agree. I love that. Okay, so we have let's go through the 5. So we have the bills, the lifestyle, savings, and then the other 2?
Is going to be for your short term and your long term goals. So, for short term goals, these are going to be things that you want to do in the next 12 months. Let's say it could be something fun like a vacation, or it could be something boring like a bulk buy or annual memberships. Those are the ones that always catch us off guard. So,
Mm.
the main thing about this count is that you are going to save now, buy later. It's the reverse of buy now, pay later. So that you don't
Mhm.
end up in big credit card debt after a vacation or after, something fun that you did. This is where a lot of people would actually benefit from having that short term goals account. And for the long term goals account, this is going to be specifically for goals that are a year or less than 5 years to accomplish. This could be like saving for a house, a sabbatical, or something really fun like a nice car.
Mhm, mhm. And how do you decide what coins to drop and which ones?
My process, it goes in order. So after you make sure that you've paid your bills, then you decide how much money do I want to put towards my lifestyle. If you know you have goals that you're trying to accomplish, you're going to be a little bit more conservative here and be like, okay, I used to spend $1,000. I'm going to cut it back to 500 so that I can start saving on the other areas. For your emergency fund, my mandatory thing is you want to make sure you have at least 1 month of savings in your emergency fund because that's going to help you build up that confidence to actually start, saving, investing, paying off debt without feeling forced to have 3 to 6 months right away. Because for some people, that might take a few years. That's a strategy that I teach in the book. Give yourself a year to save up 1 year more for your emergency fund so that you don't pause your entire life just for your emergency fund. But you're also being cautious because you at least have 1 month. Because nowadays, $1,000 is not enough. And being unrealistic with how much you need to save is going to stop you from actually starting to dream and take action on that. Now, if you don't have any short term goals or long term goals, you will just continue focusing on your emergency fund or other goals like paying off debt or investing in your retirement. There's a lot of other things that, play into this, but pretty much the high five banking method is the solid foundation that you need. And when people have the first 3 accounts, what they're setting themselves up to do is to start dreaming again. And the last 2 accounts
Mhm.
lets you execute it, which gives people the opportunity to be like, you know what? This is not just on my budget. It's not just a dream on my poster. This is real life. I can actually start executing and taking action on saving towards that vacation, saving towards that sabbatical, or, buying a nice home. These are goals that people have, and they want to feel like when they open up their bank app that they're getting closer to that goal. And it lets you see it. Hey, that long-term goals account is going to take you some time, but if you commit to it, you
Mhm.
will get there. And give yourself grace. I always tell people that.
Yes, because we like the comparison trap, right? Like
Oh,
we
yeah.
like people may look at you and be like, "Well, she has the background and
Mhm.
she's accomplished all the things and blah blah blah." But that's why I like going back to the foundation and be like, "You didn't." And then it starts with a decision. And so once people decide, then it's really powerful and I love your 5 banking method because you can see the tangibles, like, oh, like, even if
Yes.
it's $20 that you drop in there, it's $20.
It works, and then you know you can spend it without feeling guilty about it.
Mhm.
You know, a lot of times, especially as ladies, we feel guilty when it comes to spending money, even if
Yes.
it's something that we need for the house, you
Right.
know? So we wanna reduce that guilt, build up your confidence of saying, "Yes. Yes, I can afford this. Yes, I
Mhm.
can do this. Yes, I can save towards this." And know that you have that power. It's just in you. You're putting it somewhere else, you know? You need to bring it out of you and you start getting excited. Also, seeing your savings grow is exciting, especially if you have in a high yield savings account, seeing the interest go, seeing your portion grow. You start seeing the forward motion and you get excited about your journey. I think more people need that fire, that energy. Be like, hey, I'm going somewhere. I'm not just staying still.
And seeing the possibilities, like, it's so fun to see. I have, in my business, I have an account called For the Tax Man.
Yes.
So I just, like, drop, like, 30% for every $10 I get, $3 go to the tax man. And so when it comes to paying, like, for taxes for me, it's in that bank account.
You don't have to worry about it. You know you've been doing the work all year long.
It's very annoying, but it makes a
Mhm.
difference to not have to worry about it.
Yeah, and to see that money go, imagine someone telling you have a tax bill of $5,000 right now. You'd be like, whoa, that's overwhelming. But when you've been saving for it and you have that money set aside, you'd be like, oh, no problem. I actually have six. So awesome. I can pay that off and keep moving on with my business and my life.
Totally, because money stress, it affects you in so many ways, and so
Hmm. And you don't even notice it. And you don't even
exactly.
notice it. And it starts coming up in your labs, it starts coming up in your relationships, how you communicate with others,
Mhm.
how you treat yourself, and how you love yourself as well. So that's why I think it's so important. Have the foundation, get the system set, and get it out the way so that you don't have to keep worrying about it for decades. That's where people get it wrong. People are struggling with money for decades. Come on now. Let's enjoy our life. Let's not dread all of these to-dos.
Mhm. Sahirenys, tell us all the places and spaces where we can find you.
Yes, you guys can find me on Poised Finance Lifestyle on all my social medias, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. I'm on there as well. And also my website, thepoisedlifestyle.com. I'm here if you guys have any questions about the high five banking method. Go ahead, send me a DM, send me an email. I do Q&As so that people can feel like they're part of the community and they can make the changes that they want to see in their finances.
Totally, and we'll have all the links in the show notes. Tell us where we can find the book, all the places and spaces.
It right here. So you guys can see it right here, the book. You guys
Yay!
can buy it on Amazon, on Barnes& and Noble, Walmart, Target, wherever you buy books, it's gonna be available there.
Love that. I have this question to ask you.
Yes.
So your publisher is Wiley, which is a 200-year-old publisher. How was it for you to be a first-gen Latina publishing with, like, one of the oldest publishing houses, I guess?
Yeah, it was amazing because when I was in college, I actually bought a lot of the dummies series so that I
Yes.
can kind of grasp all of the series 7, the financial planning, the calculator, how to work everything. Because for me, it was all brand new. I was entering an industry that I could not refer to anyone to actually help me. So, those books, I love them. I swear by them. If you're scared of budgeting, they have books. If you're scared about engineering, they have books. And it
Mhm.
makes everything so much easier. So being approached by Wiley to write a book and share my story was amazing. The lady who contacted me was also Latina, so we had a
Yay.
lot in common. And she started implementing the high five banking method, also recommending that to her sister who just had a baby. So I can see the benefits happening right away, and people being able to take control of their finances and now being able to share it with the world.
I love that. Super fun. Okay, last 3 questions. Do you have a Remedio you wanna share with us?
Yes, I do. I thought about it, and you told me not to say Vicks. I was like, "Ah, man, Dominicans love Vicks."
Everyone. Everyone
The
does.
second option I would think would be Vaseline. I am a Vaseline queen. My grandmother, that was her beauty secret, and every time I have, like, a little burn or, a little marca, I put Vaseline. I put it everywhere. Obsessed.
You know, Vaseline it is the miracle worker
Mhm.
in so many ways, like, for so many
A little
things.
protectant, yes, and then there's also another option if people don't wanna use Vaseline, The Honest Company has a healing ointment that I also use, a little bit more organic, supporting Latinas as well, and I really do love The Honest Company. Every all their products are really good, and that one
Mhm.
is very thick, very rich, and I use it as well.
Nice. Awesome. And what's on your desk that keeps you grounded or makes you into your main character energy?
Probably my Vaseline. I'm like, "Okay, I'm ready to take on the world."
Nice.
And it is great because it reminds me of my grandmother and, the moments that I spent with her. She is who brought us all the opportunity to come to America, so I always thank her, and I told her, I'm like, "I don't know how you got here, but thank you. I love my life here in, San Diego in California." Having the opportunity to go to college, that's something that my grandparents and other ancestors couldn't even imagine. Now I'm a published author. It's crazy. And I'm so grateful to have that memory with her and this opportunity that I feel like I'm maximizing. So I'm making her proud a little bit.
She's definitely proud, for sure. And what would you say to your if you were to face your inner child, what would you tell her?
To trust herself a little bit more. Sometimes we look at ourselves and we feel powerless. I'm short, skinny. I feel like when I was a little kid, I was super, super short compared to everyone else, and I didn't feel like I had a voice.
Mm,
And to tell myself, yeah, you do. You can stand up for yourself. You can create amazing things, and to start enjoying the creative process. When I was a little girl, I used to love art, and I'm now getting back into art. I painted this painting back here, and, sometimes we just have to do what makes us happy and not feel like we have to be, judged or criticized by anyone else.
mhm.
When I was doing managing my money like this isn't a popular thing to have 5 bank accounts. But it's not until you have purpose that you start realizing it doesn't matter if it's not popular, it's working for me.
Yes.
And I have an intention of why I'm doing what I'm doing and not worrying about, what the neighbors are going to say or your tias. They don't know what's going on in your household. Focus on you.
As long as it's working for you, right?
Exactly.
Bueno, Sairanis, thank you so much for coming to Cafe Con Pam. This was fun.
Yes, it was too much fun.
Yeah, can't wait to like read the book and make sure listeners you get it. Super important first week of well, this is going to release after the week, but like
Here
just get it.
forever.
Get the book. Get the book. Super important. And
Yes,
if you for some reason cannot get it, request it from your library. So
absolutely.
that's something that's also really important is if you for whatever reason you're like right now I can't invest in buying a whole book. Libraries love when you request books. It supports the authors. It tells the publishers that people are requesting it. It's really important.
Yes, absolutely, that's a great option.
Mhm. So bookshop.org, I always recommend local librerías,
Libraries, mhm.
and your public library,
Yes, and local bookstores as well, your mom
local
and pop
bookstore.
bookstores. Yes, gotta
Mhm.
love support them too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Bueno, that was my entrevista with Sahirenys, and I want to mention something I have been sitting with since we talked about it. She said that when her son was in surgery and the hospital asked for payment, she handed over her card without panic, without dread. And she said, "Take care of my baby. The money is not a problem." And as I was prepping for this outro, it made my heart feel so much because I know what the opposite looks like. Most of us have seen it, the raffle at the funeral, the tanda that we put together, the susu, the whatever other name we use, the group chat fighting over who helped more, the GoFundMe's that go up the week someone gets a diagnosis. And that is something that we often see in our community. And I don't think it's a flaw that we have. I think it's a generational wound. And Sairen is decided for her family, for her son, it stops with her. To me, what moved me a lot about this conversation is that Sairenis wasn't necessarily trying to be rich. She wasn't trying to be a millionaire by 30 or retire by 40. What she wanted was to worry less, to be free from the worry about money during the moments that actually matter. It's that simple. The surgery, the family emergency, the moment you have to drop everything and just be present. She wanted the finances to be handled so she could be a mom. And I think about how many of us are running around trying to make more, hustle more, do more, when what we actually need is a solid foundation, is a steady floor, the system that holds when everything else is falling apart. What hit me personally is when she talked about hoarding money after the recession, saving every penny, spending less than 10% of her income because she was afraid to buy herself lunch, and she named it. It was her survival mode. And I've been in that mode. You've probably been in that mode. We've all been in that mode. When we grew up watching money disappear, either you hold on to it for dear life or you spend it before it can be taken. We all have different responses to the same wound, and tune into it. The invitation is to tune into what does it feel like to be free for you? Because freedom is what Sahirenys is offering with her book. It's not necessarily a budget or rules for you to follow. What it is a system that makes space for you to be able to dream again. So, the invitation for you is, if this episode resonated, if you recognize yourself in the story, and if you heard something your parents couldn't teach you, I know mine didn't. If you finally feel like someone explained money in a way that doesn't make you feel behind, this is the episode for you to share. Share with your primas, with your hermanas, hermanos, with everyone, with the best friend who's been stressed about money but doesn't know where to start. Tag us on Instagram. All the links are in the show notes. Get the book, The High Five Banking Method, available everywhere books are sold. Remember, if you can't buy it right now, request it at your local library because that's so, 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 so important. Y bueno, como siempre, muchas gracias por estar aquí. Thank you so, so much for listening, for choosing to invest in yourself, even with this free education that we give you every week, for being willing to look at the parts of your relationship with money that are still potentially running with fear or running on fear, in fear. I don't know, prepositions. Because choosing to face the wounds takes a lot of courage. Choosing to show up also takes time, and I appreciate you so much. Sending you so much love. Nos vemos la próxima semanita. Y bueno, como siempre, sigue brillando. Café con Pam is created con mucho amor by our small but mighty team. Content production by Nancy Jaimes. Podcast management by Maru Linardi. Social media and marketing by Brenda Figueroa. And me, your host, Pam Covarrubias. To keep the cafecito brewing and the healing flowing, join the Supporters Club for only $5 a month and access early episodes, behind-the-scenes vibes, and exclusive minisodes you won't hear anywhere else. Screenshot this episode and tag me and share what resonated. I love seeing your takeaways. Follow on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let's keep the conversation going with us on social media at Café con Pan Podcast, because your voice always matters there. We love being on Instagram and Facebook. Gracias for listening to Café con Pan, a Spread Ideas Move People production. For more episodes, guest info, or resources, visit cafeconpam.com. And if you're healing from calladita culture and don't know where to start, you can take the quiz. cafeconpam.com/quiz for tia wisdom and cariño just for you.
Sabrosura pa' ti que